guys, if you're new here, welcome. My name is Anna and today it's finally time to set up our new bullet journals for the year 2021. I'm trying out a new brand of journal for myself. This is from Notebook Therapy and it's in the style called Tsuki Fuji-san. I believe this style is limited edition, so you might want to be fast if you're interested in getting one. I'll of course do a full review of this notebook later when I've used it a little bit more, but for now I'm super impressed. I love the color and look of this journal. The paper is 160 GSM and it has that same pure white color as the Archer and Olive and Scribbles That Matter notebooks. But I think that's enough about the notebook, and now let's finally open this up and start setting our yearly pages. I don't really like to use this very first page. It usually doesn't open completely, so I just pretended it doesn't exist and started from the first full spread instead. So this will be my 4th year of bullet journaling, and if you're just getting started and in any point feel like this setup is a bit much, I'd recommend checking out my previous setups. I'll link them down below, but of course I'll try to explain what I'm doing here and why I'm setting up all these pages, so even if you're newer with this hobby, I think you'll get the drill. Anyway, so you can see me starting from these big numbers, of course stating the year we're about to enter. I wanted this first full spread to be more of an intro to this whole setup, so we'll create a small drawing here and add a quote to make these first few pages feel a little bit special. I usually always start with some pencil sketches in my journals, and I especially recommend it with big numbers or letters like this because it's very difficult to create a clean and symmetrical look otherwise. I went with this a little bit cursive or a decorative style and also added some leaves to 2 of these numbers with watercolors. You'll also find all the tools I'm using listed in the description as always. So I mainly used my Micron 08 size and my Tombow Fudenosuke to color these numbers. And I didn't manage without a few shaky lines and edges here and there. I honestly don't know how some people create these absolutely perfect big numbers like these. Mine always come out more or less shaky and uneven. So if that happens to you as well, I hope you feel a little bit better. But after that, we'll change the direction slightly and create this small flower painting. I often like to keep my yearly setups pretty minimal and simple, but I did want to add just a few bigger decorations this year to change things up. And if this feels like too much for you, you can always just skip it, and the rest of this theme will also have many more minimal pages. But yeah, I started this by sketching out 2 of these bigger flowers on a separate watercolor paper. I highly recommend searching some reference pictures of real flowers. It will make the whole drawing process so much easier. And it doesn't really matter which flowers you want to draw, so just choose something that pleases your eye. After the first pencil sketches, I started to lightly color these flowers with watercolors. Even though I've been practicing drawing flowers for the past year, I think coloring them with watercolors is still so difficult. So don't worry if everything doesn't turn out perfectly. The most important thing is that you're trying, and we'll end up with some nice soft colors to add to our theme. I would say pay attention to the shadows and highlights. Usually the lower part of the petals has a slightly darker tone since there's more shadow there, and then the tips of the petals are a bit lighter. You can also outline all these shapes with a black pen if you feel like the colors don't create enough definition by themselves. I kind of made the mistake to start from the lighter areas with this first flower. I think it would be easier to maybe start from the darkest points so you know how light the light areas should be. And I kind of tried to do that here with the second flower. So I ended up using these light plush tones. They are barely lighter than the white background actually, but I knew I wanted to color the whole background black anyway, so I didn't really mind that. I also added some soft green leaves here and there. and then these random petals that are peeking from the sides. So just take your time with these, and then when you're finally happy enough with the colors, we can start to color in the background. I think it's much easier to create clean edges using a black marker or a pen instead of black paint with a flimsy paintbrush, so I colored the whole background with my Tombow Fudenosuke pen. I think this added a nice contrast to the light flowers and also looked really nice once we attached this to our journal. I usually use double-sided tape to attach these separate drawings to my journal, but actually before I finally glued this down, I wanted to add an extra colorful paper decoration here as well. I did this same thing in last September layout, where I printed out a selection of different colors on my sticker paper that I could then use as these colorful shapes in my journal. You could of course use a colorful craft paper instead, or even just brush pens to do the same thing, but I really like how this way you can get the exact colors you're looking for. I'll also add this whole shape selection to my online shop in the freebie selection, so you can freely go and download these exact shapes for yourself if you want to go for a similar look. But yeah, I just got a nice rectangular shape here and then attached the flower picture on top of it. Then I wanted to add just a few more extra details to this page, so I added these lines to the top and bottom. And then finally wrote this short quote here I found from the internet that says, "I will carry on with courage." Somehow I thought that it would be a very fitting quote for me and many of you as well, as we're entering this new year with still all the uncertainties in the air. But that's it for our first page, and now let's finally move on. And next I wanted to set up a quick and easy year at a glance spread. So this will just basically be all the monthly calendars from the next year, so we have a place to quickly find all the dates when we are working with our bullet journals later. A page like this is always a bit tedious to set up, but I think somehow it looks super pretty after it's all finished. Of course, you could also use some monthly stickers for this if you want. There are some available on my shop as well, but I don't like to use my own stickers in my videos. I don't know, I just like to show you the option to do all of this by yourself as well, so you don't need to go and buy stickers to follow everything. But yeah, that's that. I actually didn't really like the color of this brush pen I used on the weekday backgrounds. It's a pretty color, but it didn't go together with all the rest of these monthly colors, so I added a layer of gray on top of it later. But next I wanted to actually reserve this other page for kinda setting the mood for the year ahead by selecting one specific word for it. So I personally chose the word courage. I think the quote on the previous page kind of gave it away. But yeah, courage is something I want to focus on this year, and this can of course mean many different things. Courage to face your fears, courage to adapt and change, or maybe courage to challenge yourself and try something new. I paired this title with one of my favorite short poems of all time. This is by Atticus and it says, "She wasn't looking for a knight, she was looking for a sword." I'll let this speak for itself, but I really hope this inspires my other female warriors out there. But yeah, if you're wondering about this cursive font I'm using, I actually just recently made a more detailed video about how to improve your handwriting. So I'll link that down below as well. And then after writing all of this, I also wanted to add a small colorful accent in this page with the same paper again. So I decided to add this little thing under the title. And then lastly, I finished everything with this very simple flower drawing. If the painting on the first page was a bit much for you, I think some more simple flowers like these could work perfectly as well. And I just want to say that if this is your first bullet journal, you really don't need to worry yourself with all fancy decorations. You can get a very pretty and sophisticated look with just a few accent colors and some pretty fonts. No need for any drawing or painting skills. But that then finishes our second spread, and now let's move on to set up the next one, which will be the future log. So future log is a place where you can write down any longer term plans or events that are coming up. So if you're planning something ahead and haven't set up that month's layout yet, this is the place where you can mark those things down and then later move them to your monthly calendar. I wanted to keep this page very simple this time, so I'm writing the calendars to the top and then leaving this vertical empty space underneath them. I personally don't use these pages that much, so I don't need the whole page for each month. So I decided to combine my monthly stats section here. So these are just some things I like to track every month. You could of course change everything for your own needs, but I drew these small symbols here for my YouTube and Instagram followers, for example, or how many orders I got from my shop. And then the bottom two are more fitness related, so how many move minutes and heart points I got from my Google Fit exercising app on a monthly basis. I think this is just a fun way to compare different months, and you could easily track stuff like monthly steps, for example, or times you exercised or something like that. But as you can see, I only set up this spread for the next 6 months because that's how long I always use one journal. You could of course add the rest of the 6 months to the next spread or divide this one half and half if you're planning to use your journal for the whole year. But then let's move on, and now we're entering my favorite section of these yearly pages, which is all about the yearly goals. I'm always super excited about the New Year season because I think it's the perfect time of the year to reflect on your life and maybe set some new goals for the next year. And I know some of you are rolling your eyes at me. I also used to be one of those people in the past who thought that you don't need it to be the new year to make goals and resolutions, which is of course true, but I do think that there's just something in the air around this time of the year that it just feels like the natural point to do so. So we're starting with the title here, of course, and I went with some more colorful paper. There are honestly countless different ways how you could use these and add some interesting elements to your pages. But after that, I wanted to start by setting these 2 sections for some longer term reflection. So these are basically where do you see yourself in 5 and then in 10 years. And if you're like, oh my god, I have no idea about that, that's honestly how I'm feeling too. I have no idea what I'm gonna write here yet, but I do think it's helpful to think about the long-term vision before starting to come up with the things for this year. So maybe thinking about these will show you the direction and maybe even offer a small bite-sized thing you can maybe achieve this year to be closer to that long-term vision. We'll get way more detailed in the next full spread, but I kind of wanted this second page here to be more of a decoration thing. And that's mainly because I wanted a place to write down these SMART goal definitions. So if this is the first time you see these letters, the SMART formula just basically helps you to come up with more realistic goals that you can actually achieve. And that's by reviewing the goals itself on these 5 criteria. So it has to be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. I've definitely made the mistake in the past to set way too general goals that are very hard to track. So this will just be here to remind myself not to do that this year. I was actually about to draw another bigger drawing on this page, but I honestly didn't have time to do that. I know that's annoying, but I'll share a small drawing tutorial of it later on my Instagram. I thought this video will be long enough even without it, so I hope it's okay that we are now moving on without it and now getting a bit more specific about our goals. So I personally have kind of these 4 areas where I want to set yearly goals this year. One is for my YouTube or social media stuff. The next is for my shop that I'm hoping to improve this year as well. And then I have some personal growth related goals and some about my life in Japan as well. I think it just helps me to divide things a little bit this way and measure everything a little bit more separately. I also wanted to keep this page very simple, so we are following the same light blush tones and keeping everything very cute and minimal. Then under each of these titles, I always left a little bit space to write down one main thing I would like to achieve, and then these 10 little boxes for some specific action steps. So my goal is to write down things where there is no question when I can check this box. In the past, I would write goals like, for example, improve your painting skills. But if you think about it, it's actually kind of difficult to measure when you can check that done. So now instead, I would maybe write, create 10 paintings or take a painting course online. I think something like that is just more easy to measure and it's just more clear when you can check the goal done. So yeah, I really hope these 2 goal spreads will help you guys out. And now we still have 2 sections left to set up before this whole yearly setup is finished. So the next spread here will be all about the monthly and yearly budget. I love to have a place like this in the beginning part of my journal where you can have an overall view of all the money stuff, maybe track your bills, savings, income, or just everything in between. I started again with a small title decoration here, so I drew another one of these super simple and quick flowers that didn't turn out so well actually, not gonna lie. But I still added a wash of color to it with my watercolors and then added a small box around it. Then I decided to create this small color palette using these same printed colors. And then lastly, I wrote the title here with the same bigger cursive font we've been using this far. But now that the title is done, let's move on to the actual content of this spread. I started by cutting out half of the next few pages, so we will have enough room to write something about each month. Now, you don't need to do that if you feel like you don't need it, but personally my income and savings are a little bit divided, so I kind of need all this space to track everything and count it together. But before moving on to each month, I just used the rest of this first page here for these 2 sections. The first one will be for all the fixed expenses you pretty much have each month. So this could, for example, be the rent, maybe your internet fee, any subscriptions and stuff like that. And then the next column here will be for my small wish list, where I can list some things I would like to buy and hopefully increase my motivation for saving by having these here. Then we can start to set up this first monthly section. I think money and budgeting is something that definitely changes from person to person, so just use this space however works for you. I'm basically gonna just list all the different sources of income so I'm able to calculate the total amount easily every month. And then I like to take a look at my bank account and savings account every month around the same time, so that way I can compare the numbers between each month and see if I've managed to save something or if I've used a little bit too much. But yeah, after the first one, I will just set up all the titles for the rest of the 6 months here, and also a section for some total amounts to the last page. Then, since there was still a little bit room left here on the top part of this last page, I decided to use this to track my sponsorship things. Again, probably not something all of you need, but I think this could be also a great place for some monthly bills, for example. Or maybe if you are doing freelancing, this could be a place for your clients or something like that. So just change all of this up freely if you don't happen to be a content creator. But yeah, I think that's it. I definitely think this is an important and really helpful section. But now it's time to finally move on and set up the last spread from this yearly setup. So I really wanted to have a place for all my consuming stuff. In previous years, I've always had a bookshelf page, but this year I wanted to expand that a little bit more because those pages usually ended up pretty empty. I swear, I always have so many plans to read more books each year, but then I just end up reading something online instead or listen to audiobooks or something. I know I'm not alone in this, but this year I decided to set up a few more sections here instead. First, I wanted to play with the colorful papers here again and set up these vertical title places to the sides to change things up a little bit. Then I just kind of divided this spread into these 4 different sections. So these would be for the books, audiobooks, movies, and series I want to list. I really hope this page will end up looking a little bit fuller after 6 months than my poor bookshelf pages from the past. And to be honest, I hope I'll feel a little bit less guilty about it as well. But yeah, after that's done, that finally finishes this whole 2021 yearly setup. I really hope you found at least some new ideas from this video. As always, I will also add this whole setup to my online shop as a digital download, so it's there if you want to purchase it instead, but no pressure whatsoever. If you're new here and want to stay tuned for more bullet journaling and art stuff in the future, definitely consider subscribing. My January setup should be up somewhere around the holidays with a little bit more drawing and painting as well. But yeah, I guess that's finally it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you're having an amazing day or night wherever you are, and see you in my next one. Bye bye!